My name is Timothy Speer. We're going to be going over the forgotten generation, senior citizens in nursing homes and how they're affected in natural disasters. Topics we're going to be going over is the research question, examples, research questions, the findings, the conclusion of research questions, and the end. Statement I'm proposing: nursing homes are not prepared for natural disasters. Why? We're going to go over the nursing home failures and why this is a thing, unfortunately. Winter storms in Texas 2021. Hurricane Ida, Louisiana 2021. Nursing home fire in New York 2021. Hurricane Harvey, Texas 2017. Hurricane Irma, Florida 2017. COVID response, New York 2020. First one we're going to go over is the winter storm of Texas 2021. 100 residents of nursing homes in the Houston area were evacuated. 33 of those facilities had to be evacuated due to their generators. .600 facilities lost power or had problems with water pipes and water problems. That was another reason they had to be evacuated. Hurricane Ida, Louisiana, 2021. 800 residents were evacuated. Little did they know that they were housed in a warehouse that previously held dangerous chemicals. The company that owned the warehouse lost 2 major lawsuits in 2011, and they settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of money because the residents were never told that the local residents were not told of what they were being spilled and affected their home value. 14 out of those people that were put up in that warehouse died while in temporary housing. Nursing home fire in New York, 2021. 112 residents were relocated. They had 1 death and a dozen injured. There was a total loss of the facility because the alarm to the fire station, the online alarm, was disconnected. So the fire station couldn't get there fast enough to really put the fire out. And due to inadequate water pressure to fight the fire, the building was a total loss, and the residents of that nursing home had to go somewhere else. Sounds more of a city thing, and then a municipal problem due to the water pressure, but also, why was the fire alarm off online to the station and no one addressed that problem? Hurricane Harvey, 2017. Over 20 plus nursing homes in the Houston area were evacuated. Homes had very little to support, little supplies to no support. Due to lack of communication when evacuations were happening, volunteers were coming into the nursing homes, but the workers of the nursing homes didn't know the volunteers were coming. They had no authority to take those people out. So there was a lack of communication all the way from the top to the bottom of how they were getting those people out of the actual home. Out of those 20 facilities, the residents afterwards were living in molded, damaged facilities that weren't livable, so they had to be relocated as well. Hurricane Irma, Florida, 2017. 81 nursing homes and 570 assisted living complexes were evacuated. 134 residents died, and 695 deaths occurred later related to the hurricane. One of the main problems was generators died, and so in the Florida heat, the ACs weren't running, and in the facilities it was over 99 degrees, So you had a lot of people that died. A lot of seniors died from heat-related injuries just because you didn't have a generator. Also, it didn't help that the falsifying of records, patients' records, there was not RNs, but nursing home staff were writing on patient records that they were marking them live when they were actually dead. And for dead, how long is not really sure, but there is evidence that they were falsifying paperwork. COVID-19 response 2017. The New York nursing homes had a policy in place that prevented, that actually allowed COVID patients access into nursing homes, and you couldn't reject them. So, due to the New York mandate, they had over 15,000 deaths in the state of New York alone, compared to New Jersey, which was only much less. Also, too, the emergency mandate of allowing COVID patients into nursing homes without proper studying and to looking at numbers negatively affected the senior citizens, because if the numbers could show that the residents were negatively affected, then they could have changed the mandate and prevented 15,000 deaths. Reasons for failure. Funding from private versus Medicare funding, staff problems, staff versus patient ratio, lack of emergency plan, a lack of patient care plan, no generators or lack of maintained equipment, undependable contracts for transportation.
The United States' generation is Generation Z.
I'm just going to go over this real quick. In nursing homes funded from private versus Medicare, in the long run, in the short story, for a big complicated problem, nursing homes that are privately funded fare better in disaster situations due to better funding. They have more staff on hand, they have a more complex emergency plan, their facilities are usually a little bit better, and their backup plans have more staff to help them carry out the plan. Medicare patients don't bring a whole lot into a nursing home. So Medicare patients and facilities often have lower quality of living, lower quality standards of living. So the staff is overworked, the staff doesn't show up, and if there is a disaster, sometimes the staff won't show up at all. So funding, private funding, Medicare funding, interestingly enough, has a large effect on whether a nursing home is the resident care is actually going to be decent. Vice versa, Medicare, which very seldom actually is, it's just above okay. Staffing problems. Funding goes back to staffing. If you have the money, you can staff people. If you don't, your staff's going to be overworked, high turnover rate, poor work environment, poor employee performance. Staff to patient ratio. Staff to patient ratio. If you got the staffing to cover the residents of the nursing home, then the nursing home residents have a better quality of life. So, if I have an RN who is doing more bed checks and more medication checks and all that, the resident's going to fare better. Vice versa, Medicare, which the resident of that nursing home may see an RN once a month maybe, or they only see, an RN will only see 18% of the patients. Vice versa, just a local staff that doesn't have any real medical training. They just do the grunt work, and they'll see those people a lot more. Lack of emergency plan. Just having an emergency plan makes a nursing home more resilient. But there's things in the emergency plan that most people don't think about, like water supply, how long your water supply is, how much food do I need, what kind of vans, what kind of equipment, what kind of extra beds. There's a lot that goes into it. So lack of an emergency plan or parts of an emergency plan might be okay, but not having one totally will definitely put you behind the curve. Lack of patient care plan. Most nursing homes that are underfunded will lack even a basic plan to take care of residents that have special needs. So if one needs to be turned because he's bedridden and he can't move on his own, he may not get turned as much as he needs to because they don't have the staff to do it. Or if they need specialized treatment or specialized medication, he may not get it all the time due to lack of staff, or just they may not have the plan to take care of them. Just like in that warehouse, when they put them in the warehouse, if you need always to be plugged into an oxygen tank and it needs power, but you're in a warehouse that doesn't have power, that's a lack of a patient plan and a lack of an emergency plan. A lot of these problems occur because no generator or lack of maintained equipment. If you have a generator, you need to maintain it, change oil, run it, basic engine maintenance, air filters, make sure it's pumping out right voltage. But if you don't do that, it's about as bad as having a generator, because once you go to use it and it doesn't work, you might as well not have it. And then you got to call someone to get fixed in the middle of an ice storm, which puts you well behind the curve in being ready. Undependable transport contracts. These transport contracts that they did have, some wouldn't show up, or some wouldn't have the proper vehicles that they need, or when they were needed, they weren't there. So having a dependable transportation contract with a reputable company is definitely a must. Or not having a transportation contract at all. So when you do need to evacuate the people, you need to have the proper equipment to evacuate them. Because if you don't, trying to put a bedridden person into a van, two-door van, might not be the easiest thing. Vice versa, a high-top transit van with more room, or maybe an ambulance. But all those things have to be considered well ahead of a disaster. As you can tell in the field of nursing home industry, disaster preparation, there's a lot to do. Doesn't mean it's all bad. It's just that if you do have an emergency plan, we need to shore it up, make sure it's correct, and when things do happen, make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to. Doesn't always happen, but yearly evacuation drills and also yearly inspections also help cut the unexpected problems to happen when things do happen. That cuts them down dramatically. And that's the end of the show.
The end of the show.